The Renaissance, spanning roughly from the 14th to the 17th century, was a period marked by a resurgence of interest in classical knowledge and humanism. As Europe emerged from the shadows of the Middle Ages, a new intellectual landscape began to take shape, a landscape that was quickly suppressed and shunned by many at the time. What made this period such a breeding ground for new thought? What forbidden knowledge did scholars like Bruno, Dee, and Agrippa discover that caused them to be shunned by high society? And what secrets can we learn from their writings today? This is the knowledge that they protected with their last breath. And to truly understand it, we first need to understand Europe. During this period, Europe was a battleground of ideas where ancient wisdom clashed with emerging scientific discoveries. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 facilitated the migration of Greek scholars and texts into Western Europe, igniting a fervor for learning. The invention of the printing press by Johannes Gutenberg further democratized knowledge, allowing ideas to spread rapidly and challenge long-held beliefs. Scholars, artists, and thinkers sought to rediscover the ancient texts of Greece and Rome, which contained not only philosophical insights, but also mystical and occult knowledge. This revival of interest in the Hermetic tradition, which emphasized the interconnectedness of the cosmos and the divine, posed a direct challenge to the dogmatic authority of the Church. During this time, the Church wielded immense power, dictating not only religious beliefs, but also the boundaries of acceptable knowledge. The Inquisition sought to root out heresy, targeting those who dared to question the established order. Yet, amidst this climate of fear and repression, a cadre of thinkers emerged, determined to explore the hidden truths of existence. They believed that the universe was a living entity, imbued with divine intelligence, and that humanity had the potential to unlock its mysteries through study and practice. But who were these thinkers? Giordano Bruno, John Dee, and Cornelius Agrippa. Each of these men, in their pursuit of knowledge, confronted the prevailing religious orthodox practices, ultimately paying the ultimate price for their beliefs. Their legacies, however, continue to resonate, echoing through the corridors of modern occult traditions. Let's begin with Giordano Bruno, a Dominican friar turned philosopher, who was one of the most radical thinkers of his time. His ideas were not merely a reflection of the Renaissance spirit, but also a radical departure from the prevailing norms of his time. His vision of an infinite cosmos, populated by countless worlds, directly contradicted the Earth-centric model that was upheld by the Church. Bruno's ideas were rooted in Hermeticism, which posited that the universe was a reflection of the divine mind. He believed that by understanding the cosmos, humanity could achieve a greater connection with the divine. But where was he from, and how did he even develop these ideas? Giordano Bruno was born Filippo Bruno in 1548 in Nola, a small town near Naples, Italy. Raised in a Catholic family, he was introduced to the tenets of Catholicism at an early age. At 17, he entered the Dominican order, where he began his formal education at the monastery of San Domenico Maggiore in Naples. The Dominicans were known for their rigorous academic tradition, exposing Bruno to the works of church fathers like Augustine and Aquinas, as well as the rediscovered texts of Plato and Aristotle. Bruno's insatiable appetite for knowledge soon led him to question the dogmas of the Church. He was known to harbor books on the Church's prohibited list, including works by Erasmus, which made him a figure of suspicion among his superiors. His inquisitive nature and tendency to challenge accepted beliefs would become defining characteristics of his life. So where did he begin his mystical beliefs? One notable incident during his early years involved his exposure to a controversial claim suggesting that Jesus was not divine, but merely a skilled magician. Although Bruno did not necessarily endorse this view, the mere possession of such a text invited censure from the more orthodox members of the Dominican order. This tension between his quest for knowledge and the constraints of orthodox practices would shape Bruno's future endeavors. By the early 1570s, Bruno was running from the church authorities. In Naples, his sermon on Arianism brought charges of heresy. He fled, escaping to Rome and then Venice around 1576. It was in Venice that Bruno began to shake the foundations of 16th century cosmology. He lectured at the University of Padua and debated Aristotelianism while publicly endorsing the Copernican heliocentric model. Controversial in a world still held under scholastic geocentric orthodoxy. But that was just the start of his story. Bruno's early experiences in Naples set the stage for his later wanderings across Europe. His desire to explore diverse philosophical traditions and seek a unified understanding of the cosmos led him to abandon the confines of the Dominican order. This decision marked the beginning of his nomadic life. From 1576 to 1585, during which he traveled through various cities, each offering new opportunities for intellectual exploration. After leaving Venice, Bruno embarked on a peripatetic journey across Europe, first to Geneva, then France, London, and back to France. Despite offers of academic posts, his radical ideas kept him moving. But would this be the last of his troubles? In Geneva, he came under suspicion from Calvinist authorities for his esoteric interests. By 1581, he had reached Paris, aligning with intellectual circles like the royal court. His lectures, though admired by patrons, scandalized conservative theologians. In 1583 to 1585, Bruno visited London and Oxford, where he lectured on the Copernican system and wrote La Cena di Ceneri, or Ash Wednesday Supper. In it, he defended Copernicus directly against Aristotelian replies, arguing for a moving Earth and multi-solar system cosmology, an assertion far ahead of heliocentric acceptance. Bruno's cosmological ideas were revolutionary for his time. He proposed an infinite universe filled with countless worlds, challenging the geocentric model that placed Earth at the center of the cosmos. From early on, Bruno was influenced by Neoplatonism, Hermeticism, and the mnemonic arts. His first major work, De Umbris Idearum, or On the Shadows of Ideas, 1582, reveals a method of memory-weaving symbols, cosmological correspondences, astrology, and mystical imagery into a unified spiritual system. This text laid the groundwork for his later vision of the universe as an animate, divinely saturated whole. But that wasn't the only book he published that shook the world. Bruno's writings, such as Dell'infinito, Universo e Mondi, or On the Infinite Universe and Worlds, articulated his belief in an infinite universe, challenging the notion of a singular, Earth-centered creation. He argued that the stars were not merely fixed points of light, but rather suns with their own planets, potentially harboring life. He saw the universe as a manifestation of the divine, where the material and spiritual realms were interconnected. This syncretic approach drew upon Hermetic traditions, Neoplatonism, and Renaissance magic, reflecting Bruno's desire to find a universal truth that transcended individual religious doctrines. The writings may be concluded as follows: the universe is infinite in space and time. Stars are distant suns. There is no hierarchy or cosmic center. And finally, a supreme entity connects all things, animate and cosmic. Bruno's intellectual universe was not only vast, but vibrant, sustained by magic and mnemonic arts. He believed that memory, operative magic, and metaphorical imagination were tools for shaping one's mind and fate. In works like Ars Reminiscendi and later De Vinculis Ingenati, he extended Hermetic symbolism into his philosophy of knowledge, one that bridged natural science and spiritual aspiration. Bruno's unique contribution was to merge this classical mnemonic discipline with Hermetic, magical, and cosmological symbolism. His 1582 treatise, De Umbris Idearum, on the shadows of ideas, is the first of several works where he develops his theory of memory. In it, Bruno outlines how the human mind, through imagination, can mirror the divine mind by ordering mental images in such a way that they align with universal truths. Unlike the standard method of loci, which is placing things in physical locations, as Cicero described, Bruno's method relied on dynamic, symbolic images drawn from astrology, mythology, and cosmology. His ideas strongly influenced later memory teachers and techniques of thought, including Ramon Lull's logical machines and early modern mnemotechnical practices. But that begs the question, what were these mnemotechnical practices? Bruno extended the use of memory into what he termed natural magic. In contrast to the superstition or necromancy denounced by church authorities, Bruno's magic was psychological and cosmological. The power to alter perception and align human consciousness with the divine structure of the cosmos. In works like De Imaginum Compositione, or On the Composition of Images, and De Vinculis Ingenati, or On the Bonds in General, Bruno explored how emotional and symbolic associations could bind the will and influence both the individual and others. These bonds, or vincula, were not magical spells in the common sense, but psychological and affective links created through symbols, gestures, or even poetry. The magician, in Bruno's view, was someone who could understand and manipulate these bonds through symbolic knowledge, using myth, astrological correspondences, and divine archetypes, mnemonic artistry, crafting vivid images to control mental states, rhetorical persuasion, and philosophical insight into the unity of all things. Though all of this makes one wonder, what were Bruno's views on God? Bruno's view of God was neither transcendent nor purely deistic, but panpsychic. In his system, God is the universal soul, or the anima mundi, immanent as the life force of all things. Matter and mind are not opposed. Nature itself is alive, sacred, and self-revealing. Pantheism, in Bruno's sense, did not deny God, but rather saw divinity as present in every part of the cosmos. This unity challenged church absolutism and, according to historians, anticipated parts of Spinoza's later metaphysics. To fully grasp Bruno's magical worldview, it's essential to understand his connection to Renaissance Hermeticism, a philosophical current that interpreted ancient texts, like the Corpus Hermeticum, wrongly thought to predate Moses, as vehicles of divine wisdom. This tradition, rediscovered and popularized by Marsilio Ficino and Pico della Mirandola, held that there is a prisa theologia, a primordial wisdom from which all true religions derive. The world is alive with spiritual forces. Human beings have a divine spark and can ascend to truth through contemplation, purification, and symbolic understanding. So how did Hermeticism inspire him? Bruno embraced this Hermetic outlook and blended it with his own radical cosmology. He saw the microcosm, or the human being, as reflecting the macrocosm, or the universe. Through the correct application of imagination and intellectual discipline, one could rise up the chain of being and participate in divine creativity. This is why Bruno placed such importance on image-making, visualization, and ritual gesture. They were not superstitious behaviors, but tools for aligning the soul with the cosmic soul. But through all of this, did Bruno get caught? After all, he was under suspicion for most of his life. Bruno's radical ideas inevitably brought him into conflict with the established religious authorities. In 1591, after years of wandering through Europe, Bruno made the fateful decision to return to Italy, accepting an invitation from the Venetian nobleman Giovanni Mocenigo, who wanted to learn Bruno's mnemonic techniques. Bruno had been living in relative safety in Protestant cities such as Geneva and Wittenberg, as well as at Catholic courts in Paris and Prague. His reasons for returning to Italy remain speculative. Some historians argue he was seeking reconciliation or hoping to publish his works in Venice, then considered relatively liberal. However, his return would lead to his downfall. Mocenigo, a Venetian nobleman, grew suspicious of Bruno's views, and feeling deceived by Bruno's refusal to teach him certain secrets, denounced him to the Inquisition in May 1592. Bruno was arrested by the Venetian Inquisition on charges of heresy. When questioned, he tried to defend himself as a philosopher, not a theologian. But in 1593 he was extradited to Rome, and his fate was sealed. The Inquisition, established to maintain doctrinal purity and suppress heretical views, viewed Bruno with deep suspicion. Bruno's trial lasted 7 years. He was subjected to intense interrogations and pressures to abandon his beliefs. Perhaps the most controversial of his beliefs was the idea of the transmigration of souls, or reincarnation, which was far removed from Christian orthodoxy. His response to his final chance of redemption: "Perhaps you pronounce this sentence against me with greater fear than I receive it," sealed his fate. On February 17, 1600, Giordano Bruno was burned alive at the stake in Rome's Campo de' Fiori, a public square still present today. Eyewitness accounts say that his tongue was clamped to prevent him from speaking during the execution. A wooden crucifix was held in front of him, but he refused to kiss it. His martyrdom became a symbol of the struggle for intellectual freedom and the quest for deeper spiritual understanding. Thinkers, like Voltaire, praised Bruno and criticized the Church for his execution. Although marginalized for centuries, Bruno's memory systems and magical philosophy influenced a variety of later thinkers, particularly in esoteric and creative fields. Romantic poets and German idealists rediscovered Bruno's exalted view of nature and imagination. Carl Jung and other depth psychologists referenced Hermetic and alchemical symbolism akin to Bruno's. In modern memory studies, Bruno's techniques are seen as precursors to mind palaces and visual learning. But that's not the only major figure we have to talk about. Let's move on to John Dee, a prominent figure of the Renaissance, who was a man of many talents: mathematician, astrologer, alchemist, and occultist. His life and work represent a fascinating intersection of science mysticism, and the quest for knowledge. By the early 1580s, Dee had established himself as one of the most learned men in England, possessing the largest library in the country and a profound interest in the esoteric. Long mischaracterized as merely an eccentric magician or court astrologer, Dee is now increasingly understood as a deeply serious scholar who sought to unify the empirical and the mystical into a philosophy of the whole. His life offers not just a portrait of an individual genius, but a lens into the intellectual ferment of Elizabethan England, a period when the pursuit of universal knowledge was both a spiritual calling and a political enterprise. So who truly was John Dee? John Dee was born in London on July 13, 1527, to a prosperous wealth merchant family. His father, Roland Dee, served at the court of Henry VIII, which gave young John access to elite education and courtly connections. He was educated at St. John's College, Cambridge, where he developed a keen interest in mathematics, astronomy, and the occult. He became a Fellow of Trinity College and immersed himself in the revival of Greek learning, studying Plato, Pythagoras, and Euclid alongside works in astronomy and astrology. What set Dee apart early on was his appetite for knowledge. He read widely in Latin, Greek, and Hebrew, and cultivated expertise in subjects ranging from engineering to biblical exegesis. Dee's early education laid the foundation for his later pursuits, as he became increasingly fascinated by the mysteries of the universe. He traveled extensively throughout Europe, studying under such luminaries as Gemma Frisius and Gerardus Mercator in Louvain. But what attracted everyone to him? By the time he returned to England, Dee had amassed a vast collection of books and manuscripts, many of which were rare and difficult to obtain. His library became a center of learning, attracting scholars and seekers of knowledge from across the country. Dee's intellectual pursuits were not limited to the academic. He also delved into the mystical and esoteric traditions of the time, seeking to uncover the hidden truths that lay beneath the surface of conventional knowledge. Dee's work was characterized by a desire to communicate with angels and gain direct revelations from the divine. Frustrated with the limits of human knowledge, Dee sought direct contact with higher, spiritual intelligences. He believed that through these communications he could access hidden knowledge and spiritual truths that had been suppressed by the Church. In the early 1580s, Dee began to shift his focus toward what he termed radical truths. This quest for deeper understanding led him to explore the world beyond the physical realm, seeking contact with angelic beings through scrying sessions. Dee employed various mediums, but it was Edward Kelley, the self-proclaimed alchemist and scryer, who became his most notable partner in these endeavors. The scrying sessions involved the use of a crystal ball or other reflective surfaces, through which Dee and Kelley claimed to communicate with angels. These sessions were not merely attempts to gain knowledge, they were seen as a means of accessing divine wisdom and understanding the structure of the cosmos. Dee believed that by establishing contact with the divine realm, he could uncover the fundamental truths of existence and restore humanity's connection to the spiritual world. They are said to have received messages from angels who dictated a celestial language that Dee came to call Enochian. How would he communicate with these beings? In collaboration with the medium Edward Kelley, Dee conducted a series of fortune-telling sessions, during which they claimed to receive messages from angelic beings. These sessions led to the development of the Enochian language, a complex system of symbols and sounds believed to be the key to unlocking the mysteries of the universe. Dee's writings, including the Monas Hieroglyphica, sought to synthesize mathematics, astrology, and magic, presenting a holistic view of the cosmos. But what knowledge could we learn from these communications? The Enochian communications conveyed complex angelic hierarchies, apocalyptic visions, and cosmic diagrams. Dee recorded these encounters in meticulous detail, believing he was recovering the lost knowledge of the patriarch Enoch. This language had its own syntax and script, which Dee transcribed into several manuscript books, believing them to be a universal code that predated the fall of man. During this period, Dee and Kelley traveled extensively across Europe, visiting the courts of Emperor Rudolph II, King Stephen of Poland, and other nobles. While some saw them as spiritual visionaries, others dismissed them as charlatans or spies. And at the end of it all, what was the result of these experiments? The Heptarchia Mystica emerged from Dee's scrying sessions with Kelley, representing a synthesis of various magical traditions and a radical reimagining of angelic planetary magic. This system was characterized by its complexity, incorporating elements of Solomonic magic, Kabbalah, and Renaissance thought. The Heptarchia Mystica was not merely a collection of rituals, it was a comprehensive framework for understanding the spiritual ecology of the universe. At the heart of the Heptarchia Mystica was the concept of a spiritual hierarchy, with angels and spirits occupying various levels of existence. Dee and Kelley received revelations about the nature of these beings, their roles in the cosmos, and the rituals necessary to interact with them. The system was structured around the number 7, with 7 kings, 7 princes, and a multitude of ministering angels, each associated with specific planetary influences. The Heptarchia Mystica is characterized by its intricate structure, which reflects the Renaissance fascination with order and harmony. The system is built upon a series of grids and tables, each containing letters and numbers that correspond to various spiritual entities. These grids serve as a means of decoding the names and functions of the angels and spirits within the system. One of the most notable features of the Heptarchia Mystica is the use of a 7x7 grid, which reveals the names of 49 spiritual kings and princes. Each of these beings is associated with a specific day of the week and a planetary influence, creating a cosmic clock that governs the spiritual ecology. This hierarchical structure allows practitioners to access the powers of these beings and influence the spiritual forces at play in the universe. The system also includes a series of ritual tools and objects, which are essential for establishing contact with the divine realm. These tools, often referred to as angelic furniture, are designed to facilitate communication with the angels and enhance the practitioner's ability to engage with the spiritual world. The construction of a magical temple, as revealed by the angels, is a central aspect of the Heptarchia Mystica, symbolizing the reconciliation of the magus with the divine. But where did Edward Kelley fit into all of this? Edward Kelley played a crucial role in the development of the Heptarchia Mystica. As Dee's scryer, Kelley acted as a medium through which the angels communicated their revelations. His unique abilities allowed him to access the angelic realm and relay the messages he received to Dee. However, Kelley's character was complex. He was known for his dubious claims and questionable practices, which sometimes led to tensions between him and Dee. Despite these challenges, Kelley's contributions to the scrying sessions were invaluable. he provided the necessary conduit for Dee's inquiries into the divine, allowing the two men to explore the depths of the spiritual world. The revelations they received during their sessions formed the foundation of the Heptarchia Mystica, shaping the system's structure and practices. What other aspects came out of their collaboration? The angelic revelations received by Dee and Kelley during their scrying sessions were multifaceted, encompassing a wide range of topics related to the spiritual ecology of the universe. The angels provided insights into the nature of the cosmos, the hierarchy of spiritual beings, and the rituals necessary for establishing contact with the divine. One of the key aspects of these revelations was the concept of divine espionage, where the magus could gain knowledge of events occurring in distant regions of the cosmos. This ability to see beyond the physical realm was a central theme in the Heptarchia Mystica, allowing practitioners to influence spiritual forces and engage with the divine in meaningful ways. The angels also revealed the importance of ritual tools and objects, which were essential for achieving a state of purity and dignity necessary for communication with the divine. The construction of a magical temple, along with the use of specific sigils and talismans, was emphasized as a means of facilitating contact with the angelic realm. So how does this all tie together? And what can we learn from Dee? To fully appreciate Dee's intellectual world, it's important to understand the Hermetic and Neoplatonic traditions that shaped him. Dee believed that all truths, scientific, religious, and mystical, could be unified under a single cosmological framework. He was deeply influenced by Hermes Trismegistus, the supposed author of ancient Egyptian wisdom texts, and by the Kabbalistic concept of divine emanation. His 1564 work, Monas Hieroglyphica, encapsulates this ambition. Centered on a single, complex symbol, the book lays out a vision in which geometry, alchemy, and language converge into a universal truth. The symbol itself, a fusion of the astrological glyphs for the sun, moon, Aries, and the cross, was meant to express the unity of all creation. Though extremely difficult to interpret, the Monas became a foundational text for later Hermeticists and Rosicrucians. Dee's approach to spirituality was revolutionary, as it bypassed the established religious hierarchy, allowing individuals to seek direct communication with the divine. The Heptarchia Mystica represents a significant development in the history of magic, bridging the gap between medieval practices and the more dignified, divine-oriented magic of the Renaissance. Dee's synthesis of various magical traditions created a comprehensive framework for understanding the spiritual ecology of the universe, influencing subsequent generations of occultists and practitioners. While the system itself is complex and filled with mysteries, its impact on the development of Western esotericism cannot be overstated. The Heptarchia Mystica laid the groundwork for later magical systems, incorporating elements of Kabbalah, alchemy, and astrology into a unified theory of magic. Dee's work continues to inspire contemporary practitioners who seek to explore the depths of the spiritual world and engage with the divine. This was a direct challenge to the Church's authority, which sought to mediate the relationship between humanity and God. Dee's work laid the groundwork for modern occult practices, emphasizing personal experience and direct revelation over institutional doctrine. Despite his contributions to science and magic, Dee faced persecution for his beliefs. His association with Kelley and the controversial nature of their work drew the ire of both the Church and the state. Dee's legacy, however, endures in the realm of occultism, where his ideas continue to inspire seekers of hidden knowledge and spiritual truth. But there's still one more major person we need to talk about, who gave us some of the biggest and most important truths about the world, and died hiding them. The final figure is Cornelius Agrippa, a German polymath, a pivotal figure in the history of Western esotericism, who occupies a unique position at the intersection of skepticism and mysticism. Born in 1486 in Cologne, Germany, Agrippa's life and work reflect the complexities of the Renaissance, a period marked by a revival of interest in classical knowledge, the occult, and the interplay between science and spirituality. His most notable work, 3 books of occult philosophy, has garnered attention for its synthesis of various philosophical traditions, including Neoplatonism, Kabbalah, and Hermeticism. So, who was Agrippa? Cornelius Agrippa was born into a family of modest nobility. His early education took place in Cologne, where he was exposed to the teachings of various scholars. Agrippa's intellectual curiosity led him to study a wide range of subjects, including philosophy, theology, and the occult. He later attended the University of Cologne, where he earned degrees in law and medicine. Agrippa also served as a soldier and diplomat, which exposed him to a broad range of intellectual currents and political realities across Europe. These experiences likely influenced his later critical and often skeptical stance toward religious and political authorities. Agrippa's formative years were marked by a growing interest in esoteric knowledge. He was particularly influenced by the works of Neoplatonists and Kabbalists, which emphasized the interconnectedness of all things and the possibility of achieving divine knowledge through mystical practices. This interest would shape his later writings and philosophical outlook. But where did he start his work? Agrippa's first known work was a defense of magic and occult philosophy, published in 1509, though it was only later, in the 1510s, that he began producing the writings that would secure his fame. His initial works combined astrology, alchemy, and natural magic, advocating for a worldview in which nature was infused with spiritual powers accessible through study and ritual. During this period, Agrippa served as a secretary and physician for various noble patrons, including Margaret of Austria, regent of the Netherlands. His courtly service brought him into contact with other humanists and scholars, and allowed him to pursue his interests in occult philosophy. But did he manage to find any early popularity? Agrippa's most significant contribution to the field of occult philosophy is found in his 3 books of occult philosophy, published in 1533. This work is a comprehensive synthesis of various esoteric traditions, drawing on sources from antiquity to the Renaissance. Agrippa's aim was to provide a systemic understanding of the occult sciences, including astrology, alchemy, and magic. The first book focuses on natural magic, exploring the relationships between the elements, celestial bodies, and the human soul. Agrippa argues that understanding these connections allows individuals to harness the powers of nature for their own purposes. He emphasizes the importance of intention and the role of the practitioner in the magical process. The second book delves into celestial magic, examining the influence of the stars and planets on human affairs. Agrippa draws on astrological principles to explain how celestial bodies govern the natural world and human destiny. He posits that by aligning oneself with these cosmic forces, individuals can achieve greater harmony and success in their lives. The third book addresses ceremonial magic, outlining the rituals and practices necessary for invoking spiritual beings and achieving communion with the divine. Agrippa emphasizes the importance of purity, intention, and the proper use of symbols in these practices. He also discusses the ethical implications of magic warning against its misuse for selfish or harmful purposes, though that's far from all that he worked on. Besides De Occulta Philosophia, Agrippa authored numerous other texts, De Incertitudine e Vanitate Scientiarum, or On the Uncertainty and Vanity of the Sciences, published in 1526, a critical and often cynical work, attacking the pretensions of scholastic philosophy and human knowledge, emphasizing the limits and errors of science and philosophy. De Nobilitate e Praeexcellentia Fomeni Sexus, On the Nobility and Excellence of the Female Sex, in 1529, one of the earliest defenses of women's intellectual and moral equality, highlighting the virtues and spiritual power of women. But what made Agrippa unique? One of the most intriguing aspects of Agrippa's thought is the tension between his mystical inclinations and his skepticism regarding the reliability of knowledge. While he passionately advocates for the pursuit of esoteric wisdom, he also acknowledges the limitations of human understanding. Agrippa's skepticism is evident in his critiques of various philosophical systems, including those of Aristotle and the scholastics. Agrippa argues that no single system of thought can claim absolute truth. He challenges the notion that reason alone can lead to knowledge, suggesting that mystical experiences and direct communication with the divine are equally valid paths to understanding. This duality in Agrippa's thought reflects the broader intellectual currents of the Renaissance, where the boundaries between faith and reason were increasingly blurred. But what is the best way to learn his writings? Agrippa's work must be understood against the Renaissance backdrop. The intellectual climate of the Renaissance was marked by a tension between emerging scientific rationalism and traditional religious beliefs. While figures like Copernicus and Galileo were beginning to challenge the geocentric model of the universe, the Church maintained a firm grip on knowledge and authority. Agrippa's writings reflect this tension as he navigated the complexities of faith, reason, and the occult. Agrippa's writings challenged the prevailing religious orthodoxy by asserting that magic was not inherently evil, but rather a means of accessing divine knowledge. He argued that the natural world was infused with spiritual significance, and that through the practice of magic, individuals could tap into the hidden forces of the universe. This perspective posed a direct threat to the Church, which viewed magic as a form of heresy and a challenge to its authority. And what was Agrippa's impact on all this? Agrippa's impact on Western occultism is profound and far-reaching. He, like Bruno and Dee, was inspired by Hermeticism and other branches. His writings laid the groundwork for subsequent generations of occult practitioners. The synthesis of various esoteric traditions in Agrippa's work provided a framework for understanding the interconnectedness of magic, philosophy, and spirituality. But that begs the question, did he too get caught, like Bruno? Agrippa's ideas were controversial, and he faced significant opposition from both religious and secular authorities. His work was often suppressed, and he was forced to navigate a treacherous landscape of political and religious intrigue. Despite these challenges, Agrippa's legacy endures, as his writings continue to influence modern occult traditions and the practice of magic. In the end, what were the impacts of these three men? The legacies of Giordano Bruno, John Dee, and Cornelius Agrippa resonate deeply within modern occult traditions. Their persecuted truths, once silenced by the forces of institutional power, have found new life in contemporary spiritual movements. The quest for hidden knowledge, personal experience, and direct communication with the divine remains a central theme in modern esotericism. Today, seekers continue to explore the mysteries of existence, drawing inspiration from the works of these Renaissance mystics. The Hermetic principles they championed, such as the interconnectedness of all things and the potential for human transformation, continue to guide those on the path of spiritual awakening. And what about what they left behind? The lives and works of Bruno, Dee, and Agrippa serve as a testament to the enduring power of esoteric knowledge. Their willingness to challenge the status quo and seek deeper truths has left an indelible mark on the spiritual landscape. Their legacy serves as a testament to the indomitable human spirit, a spirit that seeks, questions, and dares to dream beyond the confines of the known. As we navigate the complexities of modern life, their insights remind us of the importance of questioning, exploring, and embracing the mysteries that lie beyond the surface of our existence. The echoes of their wisdom continue to inspire and guide those who dare to seek the hidden truths of the universe.